All right, they call this meeting of the Madison Select Board to order on Monday, September 26, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let the record show all selectmen are present. Consent agenda, AP warrant number 8, 9, 12, 2022, number 9, 9, 12, 2022, payroll register number 36, 9, 8, 2022, number 37, 9, 15, 2022, and number 38, 9, 22, 2022.
Make a motion, we accept the warrants and the payroll registers.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the warrants and payroll registers as read. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. We have one added consent agenda, a CMP pole permit for the River Road. Mr. Curtis?
This is just a in-between pole that's about 5 miles in, I believe, on the River Road.
Looking for a motion to grant the permit.
I'll make a motion to grant the permit.
Second. I have a motion and a second to grant a CMP pole permit for the River Road. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
Those require your signatures, so right there.
Acceptance of the meeting minutes from September 12th, 2022.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from September 12th, 2022. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries. Old business, Mr. Moody?
None, sir.
Samantha?
None.
Mr. Dwyer?
None.
Mr. Gopian?
None.
All right. Items of communication, Mr. Town Manager.
All right, well, I need to talk to you about the meeting schedule in October. Originally, we had scheduled a meeting for the 10th of October. I did not realize that that was Indigenous Peoples' Day, also known as Columbus Day. So the town office will not be open that day. I'm still willing to meet if you want to, but it just complicates things if it's a federal or state holiday. The following Monday is the 17th. I won't be available that day. So I'm kind of needing some guidance. If you want to have 2 meetings in October, we need to figure out what days to do that, or do you want to just hold 1 meeting in October and have it on the 24th of October? So what's your pleasure?
I cannot be here on the 10th. One meeting on the 24th, or we want to try a different day of the week?
Go the 11th.
So you want to have a meeting on the 11th?
Yeah. Is that,
That would be a Tuesday.
are you okay? Glenn, you okay with that? Yep.
We'll make a note of that.
Tammy, is that the planning board meeting?
Thank you, Jay. There will be a planning board meeting here that night.
Just go with the 24th then?
So,
That's fine.
Fine, yeah.
24th, is that okay? All right, so just the 24th?
all right. Just so you know, that meeting will also be our assessors meeting. So there'll be a assessors meeting at 5:30, selectmen at 6:30 on the 24th of October. And that's usually our catch-all meeting for assessors, anything that was missed during the commitment and so forth. So there'll be a few items to go over that night. Last week I had an opportunity to catch up with Tammy Murray from the Anson Town office. We discussed a couple of things, including ATV policies for roads. And they have some of the similar concerns that we do as far as opening up local roads to ATV use. And she would actually ask about maybe doing if you're joining on Zoom, we're glad to have you, but just make sure you're muted. Thank you. She would even like to have a joint meeting between both boards in Anson and Madison to talk specifically about ATVs. So if going further down the road, we do want to have a public hearing in that regard, we might be able to coordinate it, if you're okay with it, coordinate both towns to do maybe a joint public hearing on how we're going to approach ATVs on our public roads.
We talk about that before a public hearing, I mean, with them?
Certainly. Yeah, you could talk about it as a joint meeting, but I do know we want to get some more public input on that.
Okay.
The Anson-Madison Water District has changed some board members. They do that internally, so the select board does not have to appoint new members to the water district. I believe Dana Berry has stepped down. He lives now in Norridgewok, and Jeff Lloyd has taken his place. I sent out some pictures earlier today. There was an accident last Wednesday at the corner of Hardy and Main Street across from the Hannaford's entrance. And in that accident, a vehicle ran into the retaining wall. I've since learned that that retaining wall is essentially part of the sidewalk, and so it's town property, so the town will have to repair that retaining wall. And so that person was operating without insurance, but they were not charged with anything, so there's really no chance of the town being able to recoup any costs associated with that repair.
Mr. Gopi?
Yes, they didn't have any insurance and nothing's gonna happen?
That was what I understood from talking to the sheriff's office today, that there was no citations, there's no operating under the influence or distracted driving charge or anything like that. There was an accident, they cleaned it up, and the guy drove off. So, I don't know what to do after that point, but they didn't cite him with anything. So,
Can we send them a bill?
we have his name and address, so we can send him a bill. We can try that.
Yeah.
So,
Let's go that route, see what happens.
I'll make a note of that.
So is this set something, a precedence or whatever, or you don't have to have car insurance?
I don't know what the consequences are, so. But maybe in this case, it'll be him paying the bill. So. Beeline Cable is working with both Madison and Skowhegan to renew their franchise agreements. The last time they were renewed was 2004, so it's about 18 years. They're supposed to be renewed every 10 years. And so I'm in the process of going through their agreement. It seems to be pretty straightforward. I do want to work with Skowhegan to make sure that our agreement is the same as their agreement. There are some things that are different, but I want to kind of get those squared away so they're consistent. So hopefully by October, the October meeting, we'll have an opportunity to review that and ask questions and then authorize it when you're ready. I do want to report that, as the board is aware, but probably most of the public is not, we have received 2 resignations at the town office. Tammy Carrier has resigned her position as finance director. She'll continue to work through the end of October. Her last day will be October 28th. Jay Watt has resigned his position as code enforcement officer, and he will also continue to work through the month of October. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. On the ATVs, is that something that we're looking at after the first of the year or looking for this fall?
Well, I think you probably ought to start having the conversations this fall, because there will be a small window of opportunity when the state's done their trestle work, that people may have the opportunity to use ATVs before you get enough snow to actually turn them over to the snowmobile trails. So I would say that's something that at least you should start having a conversation on this fall.
Let me see if you can set something up.
Yeah.
With Anson.
Yeah.
And then maybe a public hearing at another time.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that sounds good.
All right, new business. Number 1, public hearing to discuss acceptance of the general assistance minimum funding. This time I'll open public hearing.
So in your packets, you have a couple of sheets of paper that Kim Moody, who's our welfare director, put together. The left-hand column shows the current maximums that the state will allow for a person that receives or qualifies for general assistance. The middle column shows the increase, and then the right column shows the maximums as presented by the state for this year. The categories that Kim highlighted here are overall maximums, housing assistance, like rental assistance, utility assistance such as electric, and then food maximums. There's been no changes on heating fuel and personal care because they were pretty, and the reason being is for heating fuel anyways, they were pretty generous in those maximums last year. Now, I do want to add that the town has received additional funding to help with specifically heating costs and rent costs going into this winter. We've received a grant of $11,400 from United Way to help specifically with that, and then the state of Maine gave us some extra revenue income specifically for help with general assistance. The nice thing about the extra money is those can be used for people in need that may not qualify for general assistance. So kind of the people that are in that gray area between general assistance and other types of assistance. So there is some benefit to that.
All right, so looking for a motion, actually,
But
any other comments on the
any
public hearing?
comments? Yeah.
Sorry. Any other comments on the public hearing? And any other comments? Seeing none, the public hearing will close. Looking for a motion to accept the general assistance maximums for 2022-23.
So moved as read. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the general assistance maximums for the 2022-23. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? All in favor, the motion carries.
This one does have a signature sheet on it too.
All right, number 2, discuss disposal of a 1990 fire truck tanker.
All right, so you had the opportunity to see the new tanker truck as it came in out there in the parking lot. Again, thanks to the whole team that put together that whole process. It was a long but successful process of getting a new truck. So the question now is, what do we do with the 1990 model? In your packets, I put together 4 options that we've been talking with folks about. So we do have one private party offer that is in your packets, and that individual asked to kind of keep that as low-key and anonymous as possible, even though it's in your packets, in case the board wants to go a different route. So your options, as I see them, are you could take this one-time offer from a private individual. We do know that it would not be used for firefighting if he bought it. You could require sealed bids over a certain period of time, 30 or 60 days, for people to put in sealed bids. You can advertise that. You could take it to an equipment auction. I ran into Adrian Harris the other day, and Adrian has done auctions for us in the past. There is an auction going on in Farmington sometime in the next couple of months. They're auctioning off some large pieces of equipment over there. He would be willing to take ours over there and include it in his auction. What he does for his fee is he does a lot of advertising and promoting to try to get more people to come to the auction. And then I also talked with former Chief Roger Lightbody and the current fire chief in Fairfield, Dwayne Bickford, I think. And one of their recommendations was to see if the town would consider donating it to a smaller community that's still in our mutual aid area. Some of the recommendations were a town like Starks, or maybe going up to a place like Caratunk, where the 3,000-gallon tanker, maybe could be helpful. So I'm not looking for a decision tonight from the board. I'd just like a healthy conversation and to see which way that you would like to pursue.
Mr. Manager.
Yeah, do we have any other, any highway equipment that we need to dispose of or anything?
I defer to Jeff.
No, not this time, no.
Not this time, okay. Thank you.
Rudy.
I'm quite interested in seeing what neighboring towns have a need for this. I mean, if we can do something at that price to help a neighboring town that might need a fire truck, I would be kind of leaning towards that myself.
Why don't we just open it up to a sealed, you're talking about giving it to a town? Or for this, for,
Well, it depends on what can you afford? Them small towns, they don't have a big budget.
looking at the parade we had, there's a pretty big budget somewhere. I don't know where it is, but there's a big budget somewhere, but Mr. Manson.
Yeah, I just, one concern to go along with Ron would be the manpower to utilize it. I know, everybody's having trouble with firemen, and it doesn't do much good to have a fire truck without someone to drive it.
And that 1990 is a manual transmission, and it is not easy to drive. That's been one of the reasons that we've been trying to replace it, and it's one of the reasons it hasn't been out of the garage very often in the last year.
All right, anybody else? So do you want to check with other communities and see who might be interested? And I think the way to go would be to take sealed bids and see if anybody puts a bid towards it. I mean, that's up to,
You can have a minimum amount starting bid, or
yeah, we could come up with something, I think, so. We can talk about it.
So right now, you want me to just kind of look into what other communities might be interested in as far as
Right.
what their needs are, what they might pay for one. All right, and then from there, we can pursue a sealed bid. I think, is Marty still here? No, let's see. Okay, I believe that's where the 1990 is right now. I believe it's being stored up at MEW. So I don't think they're in a pinch for space. So we could go that route. All right.
All right, thanks.
I'll look into that and get back to you.
Okay. Select board concerns, Mr. Moody.
None, sir.
Mr. Manta? None. Mr. Gilpin?
I have a couple here. On, you wrote a job for one position, not the couple other ones. Is there any reason? I mean, like code enforcement or grant writer or community developer or anything like that?
So repeat that question. I did what now?
Yeah, you wrote one job description, what you're looking for a position, somebody to fill.
Are you asking me if I have done that?
Yeah, yeah,
The bookkeeper.
bookkeeper one,
Right.
right?
I posted a bookkeeper position today.
Right.
That was the most urgent one, so that's what I
Okay.
posted.
Okay.
Yeah. As far as looking for another code officer, I'm going to utilize the two people that we have that have been appointed, because that's the key. They have to be authorized to sign for the town.
Okay.
And so those two people are Jay and Leo.
Right.
And so as we go through the winter time, I'm going to lean on those two whenever I need signatures and so forth. Everything else is going to come back to my desk.
Okay.
I don't have enough money to offer a full-time position, so I'm going to probably continue to look for part-time until we get to the spring of next year, and we can talk about this in the budget again. But in regards to the grant writer, I haven't written a job posting for that. I've been talking to Kennebec Valley Council of Governments, KVCOG. They have a grant writer that they subcontract with, and I'm trying to see if that person would be interested in subcontracting with us. So,
Okay, and one more, this is just me, I like to call Tammy, the bookkeeper, into an executive session, so there's a few questions I'd like to ask her, but I'd like to ask her in an executive session.
that's up to the five of you. By freedom of access laws, it is not unethical to call an executive session, even if you don't have one on the agenda. So you're perfectly within
You mean
the
tonight?
rules to do that.
No,
No, he wants to put it on the agenda, I believe,
you're right.
for another time.
Yeah, the 24th or something like that, yeah,
Okay, so you're not talking about doing that tonight?
and I hadn't planned on it.
Okay. All right.
If you wanna do it tonight, that's,
Well, I think we need to sit down, if that's what you want to do, then
Yeah.
I need to talk to Tammy about if she's interested in doing that.
yeah,
She might not be interested in doing that, and she doesn't have to tell me that right now. So I can ask her that question. If she says yes, then we
okay,
can do it the next time.
all right.
Anything else? Mr. Gilpin?
Just one other thing, on this ATV thing, maybe we should have it at the end of November because October or sometime real quick because our next meeting's the 24th and it should be, they may be riding on it by then.
Yeah, I doubt they'll be able to get across the train trestles, but across
It won't be ready?
across the river, especially Norwood. So those are the big projects. North Anson over here and Norwood. Those are the things the state's doing that. So we're at the mercy of when that done. But I agree with you. I think those discussions should happen in November.
I mean, meeting with Anson.
Right. I think that should happen in November. I agree.
Yeah.
Mrs. Wyatt?
I have some thoughts about our code enforcement that I would like to share, if that's okay. Is this a good time to do that? Is this concerns you?
Your concern.
Okay. I'm going to read it because I have a lot of
Sure, I'm
thoughts.
gonna get an answer, but.
That's all right, that's all right. I just want it out there. Okay, after much thought over the last 2 or 3 meetings and hearing some negative feedback from the community, I feel we need to consider how we as a board are perceived in this community. Our job, I feel, and I hope this is correct, our job is to keep Madison on a sustainable path into the future. That being said, we have some really positive things happening here in town, such as Timber HP Go Labs, proposed new apartment complex on Weston Avenue. Several new home construction projects that were brought to our attention last week from Jay. ATV trails are coming into town, Weston Woods and Waters trails. We have the beautiful Kennebec River running through our town. We have many successful businesses located in town, both here and in East Madison. I would like to think that with the new investment in town, more will follow. We need to welcome this investment and be able to meet the needs required to get the work done. Without a COE, code enforcement officer, much of the construction work will be slowed. Many unattended buildings will fall further into disrepair, and the list goes on. Without someone to be able to stay on top of this, we risk losing investment in town. I feel we have plenty of work for a full-time COE right now. When I was first elected, I felt excited to be part of this board and have enjoyed working with everyone. But I'm truly disappointed that we have not been able to come to an agreement on this subject. It was suggested we wait until next town meeting to rectify the situation. We should not wait. I trust we have read, well, those of you who are here who have read David Savage's email regarding this topic. I think it's a good explanation of what needs to be done, and I agree totally with it. We had a good candidate hired. He was happy at the prospect of being able to stay in Madison and work in Madison. Just wanted a change of job and something different. And he hit the ground running. And now, sadly, he has decided to leave the position due to our inability to come to a positive decision on this. I understand that some people feel that this was not handled as it should have been, and maybe that's the case. But we all agreed to fill this position, and now we are left without a code enforcement officer at a very critical time. This makes this board look like we do not know how to run things. Frankly, I'm embarrassed to have to sit here and watch this happen. I've said it before, and I will reiterate myself again tonight, and I'll do it again if I have to many times. We need to look into the future and not backwards. We're all over 60, all of us here on this board, and times are changing. We cannot get on, if we cannot get on board and look to the future, then we will be left behind, and Madison will also be left behind. And I'm not sure if anything will come of this, but I feel that I have needed to say this for a while, and I feel that we're doing a really big disservice to the town of Madison by doing this and putting this out there the way we did it. And that's all I have to say.
Any other comments? All right, any citizens' concerns? Yeah, Brittany.
Good evening. I'd like to make a statement that addresses the recent votes made by Mr. Hagopian, Mr. Manter, and Mr. Moody in regards to the code enforcement officer position. The conversations around a full-time code enforcement officer began more than a year ago during the February 22nd, 2021 meeting. During this meeting, Mr. Curtis explained the full-time position that he was looking to open up. He explained that the full-time position would be a $75,000 salary with benefits and mileage. During the conversation on February 22nd, 2021, Mr. Savage explained that a reputable and qualified person would want a full-time code enforcement officer position. He said, quote, "Just anybody can't do the job. I mean, you need certifications for the state." He reported that he has seen salaries of $75,000 and that Madison would be able to find a dedicated individual if there was a full-time position. Mr. Moody conversed with Mr. Savage and stated, quote, "When you have rarity, you have competition. That's how we lost the last one. It came down to hours and money." Mr. Savage and Mr. Moody agreed that a dedicated code enforcement officer was a, quote, "rare commodity." So I'm curious as to why a full-time code enforcement officer who is dedicated to the town of Madison and who is qualified for this position is no longer a, quote, "rare commodity." Does this town not deserve to have someone dedicated to this work anymore? I speak on behalf of myself and many residents of Madison when I say that the decision to vote no was very disappointing. Aside from their decision to vote no, their behavior over the summer has been absolutely shameful and juvenile. I have watched and listened to you all question and slander Mr. Watt's character, who is my father, in a way that is so unjust and disgusting. When those 3 selectmen voted no on September 12th, 2022 to fund this position, they were asked to explain their vote. I would like to highlight Mr. Manter's explanation specifically. Mr. Manter said, quote, "I don't believe we need to pay $25 an hour for a janitor or someone to rake leaves." He also gave reasons such as the code enforcement officer asking for a budget increase due to needs, mileage, and other resources. The fact that Mr. Manter was concerned about a full-time code enforcement officer eventually asking for mileage reimbursement as a reason for voting no, when it was made clear that this would be an aspect of the job description and the budget, proves a glimpse into the reality that his vote did not have the best interests of the town at its roots. He stated that he didn't feel as though the maintenance part of the position was well planned out. I feel as though the explanation Mr. Manter gave was not the actual reason he voted no. On July 25th, 2022, Mr. Manter said, quote, "I think on that list there's coordinate with highway for this, for that, for everything else. And he needs to stay out of the town garage. He ought to turn his keys in. There's been enough hate and discontent from that anyway. That needs to be cut out because all he'd be doing is standing there at $24 an hour and watch the highway do the work because it takes equipment and it takes more than one person. So that needs to be taken right out if he's gonna say. Mr. Manter, how dare you question my father's character? When he accepted the code enforcement officer position, he offered to help the highway department this winter when he was able to. He has worked for the highway department for 16 years and is more than capable of helping the highway staff when there is a need. Does this sound like someone who would, quote, stand around at $24 an hour and watch the highway do the work? No matter where a person works, working does not include signing your life away. Anyone, including my father, has the right to change jobs if they feel that is the best interest for them. And nobody, including any of you, has a right to create intentional barriers for that person because you don't personally like it. The code enforcement officer position was proposed to the advisory committee by Mr. Curtis. It was discussed and clearly understood by all parties that this would indeed be a full-time position with a salary of $75,000. During this time, the entire advisory committee and select board voted to carry forward the $25,000 to fund this full-time position. But for some reason, as stated on July 25th, 2022, Mr. Hagopian and Mr. Moody somehow forgot all about it, and they needed an explanation on what that job title meant and what the duties would be. Both of these selectmen have made several comments about honoring what the town people voted on in terms of other issues, but they can't seem to remember what they discussed in past meeting. How are residents supposed to have confidence in their elected officials if they backtrack on something just because they didn't like the end result? When discussing the full-time code enforcement officer position on July 25th, 2022, Mr. Hagopian said to Mr. Curtis, quote, "So let me get this straight. You knew he was going to get done." Mr. Curtis informed Mr. Hagopian that he did not create this position with anyone in mind. And I will remind you all that Mr. Curtis already informed the select board of this when it was first discussed in February of 2021. Mr. Hagopian also referred to my father's career change as, quote, "jumping ship." I would like to know who gave Mr. Hagopian the authority to dictate and judge what other adults do in the career decisions that they make for themselves. Also on July 25th, 2022, Mr. Moody stated, quote, "I guess I just didn't understand the whole situation here. It was surprising to me, and I guess it's my fault that I didn't look deeper or check more or what have you." And, quote, "So he came from highway and didn't lose a cent. He didn't lose a cent, but he left the highway hanging. I'm sorry, Tim, I just don't like it. I will reiterate my previous statement to you both. No matter where a person works, working does not include signing your life away. Anyone, including my father, has a right to change jobs if they feel like that is the best decision for them. And nobody, including any of you, has a right to create intentional barriers for that person because you don't personally like it." Mr. Hagopian, Mr. Manter, and Mr. Moody have questioned not only Mr. Watt's character, my father, but they have also questioned Mr. Curtis's character. They have stated and made comments that Mr. Curtis intentionally created a position behind the town's back just to give it to my father. Anyone who knows Mr. Curtis or my father knows that this is not true, nor would it ever be true. Mr. Hagopian, Mr. Manter, and Mr. Moody owe a public apology to Mr. Curtis, Mr. Watt, and the town of Madison residents for their behavior without a but or any other excuse for it. Thank you.
Mr. Duchamp?
Good evening. I also have comments about the code enforcement, but I have a little different approach. I looked at it from the perspective of the workload, because it was stated at one of the meetings that I was at that there wasn't work enough for a full-time code enforcement officer. So having been on the advisory board when it was talked about, and having been on the board of selectmen when some of these rules were passed, I thought, well, maybe I can bring something to light. At the recent meeting, there's a letter in the front, and I'll just hit the highlights of it for you. At a recent meeting, the board discussed whether the town had work enough for a full-time code enforcement officer. In the past, the code enforcement officer was responsible for plumbing permits, building permits, and other things, but the rules in the past were significantly different. The workload of the Madison CEO is significantly different than that of Anson and Norwich Walk. I've heard it bandied around that we can share one with Anson and Norwich Walk. It won't work, and I can tell you why it won't work. In December 2010, the state of Maine adopted the Maine Uniform Building and Energy Code, or MUBEC, for all municipalities of over 4,000, population greater than 4,000. This code is significantly different than what the codes that Anson and Norwich Walk go by. There are more inspections, there's more guardrails for builders in the MUBEC code, just by virtue of the comprehensiveness of the code. It requires that the CEO be available for inspections on more regular, more consistent times to avoid creating unnecessary delays for builders. The second piece of the workload is the property maintenance ordinance that was passed in 2012. The ordinance stipulates that code enforcement officer is the person that defends the citizens of the town from property maintenance violations. In your packet and the pages that follow, you'll find a copy of the property maintenance ordinance and photos of some properties that appear to be in violation of the property maintenance statute. These recent photos were taken within a half a mile of the town office. If one wanted to take more time, I'm sure there are at least double that number right within the town proper of different properties that are in violation of property maintenance code. The property maintenance ordinance means nothing if it's not enforced, and clearly it's not being enforced. These properties will eventually damage the values of the surrounding properties unnecessarily, as you have the tools to fix this with the ordinance. You just need the CEO to enforce it. Please reconsider your action to not allow the town manager to make this position full-time, at least for the remainder of the fiscal year, within his general government budget. Evaluate that at budget time for the following year to determine if it should remain. The town has struggled with code enforcement since 2012 when MUBEC was passed because the work required is too significant for a part-time CEO. Respectfully, Jack Duchamp. Thank you.
Any other comments? Mr. Ford?
Well, haven't we got ourselves in a mess? I'm personally disappointed and disgusted at what has taken place here. I want to commend Sally and I want to commend Chairman Venziano for their roles. I had a call this week asking if I would be interested in putting together a recall on 3 selectmen. That isn't anything I'm interested in doing. I don't think we've come to that point. But when I see Al Venziano, Jack Duchamp pass out those handouts and 2 selectmen not even touch them, not even look at them, that tells me that there's something missing here. Something seriously missing here. I don't have to go through Kathy's Estes' letter, well done. I don't have to go through the minutes of the meetings. And this young lady behind me, I think, said it pretty clearly that we've got a problem here. And I think it's very clear where the problem started, where it went to on the board, and then where it ricocheted back until they got 3 votes. This is not good. This is not good at all. So I would ask Ms. DeVenziano to try to pull this group back together again and make good decisions for the town of Madison. We need a code enforcement officer. We had a good code enforcement officer. I know it rubbed some people the wrong way, but this isn't the way to handle it. I trust you 3 that voted no. If you had a son that was treated like this, like Jay Watt was treated, you'd be flying off the deep end over it. And there's no reason to do that. Now I hear that some of you are after the town manager. Want to get rid of the town manager. He's the best town manager we've ever had. His numbers are always right. He explains everything well before it's to happen. I don't know why he wants to put up with you. But I will tell you, if you go after the town manager, you can count on me trying to fill this room every night, and we'll recall all 3 of you.
You have to listen to these threats.
I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Fortin.
All right,
You're welcome.
looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All right, motion.
Excuse me, there's another question in the back.
Kathy?
So I don't really have a question, but I would like to say ditto to Angela. She spoke very well, and she said everything I wanted to say, and good for her, because she can say it much better than I could. And thank you, Paul, and thank you, Jack, for actually speaking up and saying something. And I just want all the selectmen to know that I have a deep concern too, okay? I really think that we need a complete, full-time code enforcement officer, and I just want you to know that I don't appreciate the 3 that wouldn't vote and won't change their minds on it, okay? I don't think you are putting the town in, you're here for the people of the town. You're supposed to represent all of the citizens of the town, all of the taxpayers. That's what I keep hearing. You haven't. You're not representing what was thrown out there, what was discussed publicly. You're not representing that you're not following through. You guys also carry forward $38,000, as I recall, for the highway department to increase pay. I, as a taxpayer, didn't know you were doing that, and I don't think I would have approved of that, just so you know.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right, looking for motion to adjourn. Mr. Moody.
So move.
All right, second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor? All in favor? Motion carries. Adjourned at 7:07.